Hi everyone, my name is Terry Westwell and today is Tuesday, which means it's time to discuss our book of the week, which is The Bandit Queens by Parini Shroff. First, this is a spoiler-free section, so if you haven't read this book yet, don't worry about it, it won't be spoiled for you here. There will be some spoiler-related things that I want to discuss, but that'll be later on in the video, and you will get plenty of warning. If you'd like to join in on any of the discussions, send me your thoughts, comments, or even a short video clip of you discussing the book, then I'll list the next upcoming 4 books in the description below. So, as per usual, I knew absolutely nothing going into this book. I mean, I knew that it was marketed as a thriller with all of the tags and everything on Storygraph and Goodreads saying that it was a thriller, but I think that was literally it. Which is my favourite way to read a book. However, it does sometimes mean that I'll just put off a book and it'll take me forever to actually get to it for pretty much no reason. I mean, we're all told not to judge books by their covers, but this one has been on my physical TBR now for a while, and it's mostly just because looking at the front cover of this book, it doesn't look like a thriller that I would usually gravitate towards. And honestly, if this wasn't for randomly selecting books through my TBR jar, then this probably would have stayed on my list for a little while longer. Which is a real shame because I ended up really liking it. I rated it 3.75 stars. It was a good book and there's a lot to enjoy about it. And you might be asking, well, if you liked it that much, why did you only rate it 3.75 stars? And that's because while I did really enjoy it, it was also really slow at times. Like, the pacing was probably my least favourite thing about this book. However, there was still enough going on, and I liked the characters enough to stay hooked to the story. Okay, so quick summary. For Geeta, life as a widow is way more peaceful than life as a wife. That is until other women in her village decide that they want to be widows as well. Geeta is believed to have killed her missing husband, a rumour that she hasn't bothered to try and correct because a reputation like that keeps a single woman safe in rural India. But when she's approached for help in ridding another wife of an abusive and drunk husband, her reluctant agreement sets in motion a chain of events that will affect the lives of all the women in her village. If I had to compare this to any other book, I guess it kind of reminds me of The Housemaid, but maybe combined with something like Yellowface. I think that it has a great balance of that thriller element and also a political discussion. I think that it's a good insight as to what life can be like for women in different cultures and more rural areas, but also what life can just be like for women in general sometimes. I think that it does a great job of discussing some very serious topics while still remaining very gripping and entertaining and not taking away from that. There is a ton of character growth, and while I wasn't a huge fan of the main character in the beginning, she definitely grew on me and so did some of the others. For the most part, the chapter lengths were fine, although you would occasionally get one that just felt a little bit too long, which may have contributed to the fact that it just occasionally the pacing felt a little bit off. The beginning of the book was great and so was the ending. It's just that somewhere in the middle it kind of felt like it could have been condensed a little, but then again it didn't actually stop me from reading it and I still really enjoyed it. The book contained quite a lot of this other culture and language, and yet it was still really easy to read, which I think is a balance that can be quite difficult. I mean, the parts that weren't explained to you, you could still easily understand through context, and I think that it was really well written. So as for the question, would I recommend the book? Absolutely. Apart from my slight issue with the pacing of the book, I think that it was a really interesting read with great character development. I wouldn't say that it was a super tense or suspenseful read, however, it was dark and realistic, and it had me rooting for the characters. So will I be reading any more by Parini Shroff? Absolutely. While I might not read a ton of thrillers, like I think it averages out maybe one a month, I would definitely read another one by this author. I actually don't know anything about any of her other books, and while I might not purposely go straight out to pick up another one, if I saw one, then I would absolutely be tempted to give it a try. So earlier on in the video I said that you would get plenty of warning for any upcoming spoilers. This is that moment, so if you haven't read this book yet, I would suggest going doing that first, because beyond this point there will absolutely be spoilers. At the beginning of the book, I really wasn't a huge fan of Geeta, but then after a while, I kind of realised that it was realistic because after everything that she'd been through, some people had in fact treated her really horribly, but then there were also misunderstandings and she'd alienated herself because at this point she kind of just expected everyone to be assholes. She was gaslit into believing that even her best friend wasn't her friend, and so after everything, she was just a much harsher character, and she was kind of rough around the edges, always expecting the worst from people and quick to judge, while also not really being all that pleasant to other people herself. So I think she was kind of realistic in that sense. I think that she had a lot of depth to her, and also in other ways I think it was also a great representation of women. I don't think I've ever read anything more accurate when it came to how women sometimes look after themselves when it's just them. I mean, me and my husband, we have a home-cooked meal pretty much every single night. It's a standard, but if it's just me, then sometimes just having something like some biscuits or some crisps is a perfectly acceptable meal. And I fully believe that that's just a universal understanding with all women. Despite the very serious topic in this book, it also had some really funny moments. I mean, the line, "If you fart in one corner of town, they smell what you had for dinner in the other," was an excellent line that I think anyone from a small town can understand. At one point, Saloni complains, saying that Geeta has more causes than pubic hair, and in this I can understand Geeta's frustrations. Because I think a lot of people see things this way. Sometimes I think people see all the things that we're fighting for and go, well, what more do you want? You know, we've got the right to vote, we've got the right to work, but they're not all separate causes. Like, we're talking about one thing, which is equal rights, and yet some people will see all these ways in which we argue that we're not being treated equally as several different causes, when in reality it's just one thing. I just think it did a really good job of having all these very serious discussions while still maintaining a good level of humour and not feeling too overwhelming. I mean, Geeta and the others turned out to be total badasses, and I loved how they developed as individuals, but also how these women came together and their relationships developed. I will say that the ending was a bit predictable. I mean, I clocked really early on that Karam obviously knew more than he was letting on. I mean, he referred to Ramesh in the present tense and even made a couple of references about him being blind. I mean, I saw it coming, but it was still a really good ending. I thought it was really funny, and again, I liked how these women came together and took back a bit of power from these men who clearly underestimated them. But let me know what you thought. Did you enjoy the book? Next week we'll be discussing Enemies to Lovers by Laura Jane Williams, so don't forget to get your thoughts and comments in by Sunday the 29th of June at the latest to be a part of the discussion. You can now do this on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram or Discord. The following week will be Filthy Rich Vampires, but don't forget if you do need a little bit longer to read a book, we do now list the next 4 books down below, along with the discussion dates. That way you can choose the genre that best suits you, and the best time frame to read it in. Thank you all for joining, and if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, it's always appreciated, and I'll see you next week. Bye! If you like romance, fantasy, or even thriller, basically anything fiction book related, then I suggest you head on over to the channel's intro video, where you can find out more information on how you can take part in this online book club. We announce books at least 4 weeks in advance, and we accept your bookish feedback in a wide manner of ways. Post your comment below video, send in a voice note, or even send me a short video clip of you discussing the book. Alternatively, you can just send me a direct message.